Hello, everybody. This is Elliot Sill. We're going to skip the intro today. We're running a little bit behind here, but we have a great show for you today. Welcome to the Illini Drive. Thank you very much, Torrance. I'm joined here today with Torrance Sorrell and Joey Gelman, and also joining us right off the bat on the show via the phone lines is former Daily Illini sports editor, former Daily Illini managing editor, Illinois graduate, friend of the show, Will Leach. Will, are you there?
Technical difficulties, or
I guess he's not there. See, this is the second time that we've tried to get Will on the show.
Yeah, we do.
And the first time we were experiencing some technical difficulties as well. So I think it might be his fault. Maybe he's just cursed. Well, we try and get that figured out. I guess. How are you guys doing today, Joey and Torrance?
Doing well.
yeah, I'm good, man. Just trying to avoid this weather, not trying to get sick. I mean, it's getting a little bit better now. I know Thursday is going to be 70, so I'm gonna go outside and gonna probably shoot a little bit of hoops and get ready for the upcoming DI 3-on-3 tourney.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, it is National Championship Monday, and even though the weather's terrible here, it doesn't rain indoors, so they won't have any issues there. Will, I can hear you there. You're on the line?
I am. You can hear me now.
Great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt the 3-on-3 talk.
Oh, no, yeah. It's a really hot topic. A lot of people on campus are buzzing about it. They're filling out their brackets already. Speaking of which, how did your March Madness bracket turn out this year?
Oh, terrible as always. I had one team in the Final Four, and that was Florida, and they went out. I actually had Louisville winning the whole thing, so that really didn't go well at all. But I think that's kind of a growing theme. I don't think too many people had this championship at all, even though it's kind of strange because these are both, it's not like you ended up with George Mason against Tulsa or something. Like these are generally blue blood programs in college basketball, but it certainly is strange to have a 7 and 8 playing, particularly when they're this kind of high quality of program.
Yeah, it's weird this year. It's almost as though this year's Davids are actually Goliaths.
Yeah, it takes some of the fun out of it, doesn't it? I feel like this would be awesome. Yeah, I'm sure CBS wouldn't like it because the ratings would be lower, but what do I care? That George Mason and if it would be more fun than George Mason and Tulsa, but it's still kind of an exciting matchup. It's still kind of an exciting matchup when you kind of look at Kentucky's such a fun team to watch, and Connecticut's got Napier. It should be a pretty even matchup. One of the things that's crazy about being here in Dallas to watch these games is the Final Four is one of the quieter environments you'll ever watch a college basketball game. It's really quiet because there's 80,000 people here, but they're in this huge building and they're all rooting for different teams, so it doesn't actually get that loud.
Yeah, I saw you had an article about that today, kind of on sportsonearth.com, and it is interesting. I heard similar things, about the Super Bowl, how the Super Bowl is the biggest football game of the year, but it's really not, fanatical like some other events. And college basketball really is one of the more, as you said, one of the more intimate sports with the frenzied college fan section. You don't really have that in the Final Four.
Yeah, and it's like seeing an acoustic band play at the Rose Bowl or something. It's really weird. It's just, and then you can. And also, I went up and saw some of the seats. Some of the seats, it's ludicrous that they're charging people money at all. But seats alone, $150. When you get up to the very top, the players look like ants. It looks like you're actually watching a game that's happening below you on an airplane. So it's kind of a strange experience. So. But it's fun, it's cool to be. This is my first Final Four that I've actually attended, so it's kind of a fun thing to watch. But certainly, I find myself missing kind of claustrophobic, intensely small college basketball games with a crazy student fan base. This doesn't quite have that.
Yeah, I mean, what have your thoughts been on this tournament so far? It's obviously been a wild run to get to where we are now. I mean, where does it rank for you in terms of just how it's gone according to your expectations?
Yeah, it's certainly been unexpected. It's been pretty fun. I have to say, maybe this is my own bias, but I find myself. We got to get back to this point, but when there's an underdog team that no one expects to win, and they have all sorts of crazy comebacks after falling behind, and all winning on these crazy buzzer beater last second shots, we would really be excited about it if it weren't Kentucky.
Yeah.
If this were any other 8 seed, it should be the most thrilling thing. And I think, one of the things that's interesting to me, one of the I found myself, and I feel a little embarrassed to say this as an Illini guy, I found myself cheering a lot for Wisconsin. I felt like they had like the most competitive in the team you would have been happiest to see win, I suppose, if that would have made sense. I feel with Kentucky, you've got guys that are just kind of like popping in for a year, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think it does take a little bit of the drama out, particularly to be a team like Wisconsin, playing together for so long. But also, when you look at Connecticut, people forget that Connecticut, if they win tonight, this will be their fourth championship in 15 years. Like, that's insane. Nobody thinks of Connecticut that way. They think of Duke that way. They think of Kentucky that way or Louisville that way. But it'll actually be Connecticut be the one that did it. So I find that kind of compelling, the idea that Connecticut is this team that no one, like, they didn't make the tournament last year because they had academic probation, and they had this messy new coaching situation, and they could really turn out to be kind of one of the more unlikely champions you've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree with that. They're kind of like the San Antonio Spurs. You mentioned four championships in 15 years. It's just kind of like they're always there and they're always consistent. But yeah, I mean, this is their first Final Four since Jim Calhoun left. Obviously, it's a big opportunity for head coach Kevin Ollie.
Yeah, and it's weird too because they weren't even sure they wanted to take the intern tag off of him like a year ago, 9 months ago. In a lot of ways, it is, and I think that speaks to one of the things that we both love about the tournament, but also is a little silly about it. I mean, we get all so caught up in storylines, narratives, and who this coach is and how successful they are, and then you have like this crazy tournament where clearly I think Kentucky probably should have lost 3 times by now. Connecticut should have lost their first game. I was actually at that game in Buffalo when they beat St. Joseph. They should have lost that game. Like when you have a 1-game sample size in a game that like college basketball where a team can just get off the 3-point line or not get hot and lose. I think you're going to see more and more random kind of results like this, which is fun, but it does lead to some weird kind of championship matchups that no one could have possibly expected.
It's really fun for the first weekend and a half.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and then you're like, oh, Kentucky, all right. And I have to, one thing I've really enjoyed being at my first Final Four about. Illinois has got to make the Final Four again, man, because it is super fun if you're a student.
Oh, yeah?
They are. Where I'm sitting is right behind the Connecticut student section, and I think they're good fans. I personally think Illinois fans are probably a little better. I feel like if you were to rank the fan bases and students that came here, Kentucky is obviously first, and then Wisconsin and Connecticut and Florida was at the end. Illinois, I could have competed with any of them except for maybe Kentucky. And so it's a really cool thing when your team is in the Final Four to be able to see them. Like, fans are it's really just an awesome thing. The students are having so much fun here. It made me really, really envious for Illinois to make the Final Four again because it's quite an experience.
It's weird because, I mean, you wouldn't think UConn's fan base wouldn't be so excited. And I mean, their men's and women's team are, in the final game. I mean, their women's team always been pretty good, just historical wise. But both teams are in, and you would think, they'd be real excited about it. But definitely, if Illinois both teams was to make it would probably be nuts around this area.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, I know that you guys still have the glory of youth, and you don't probably remember even 05 all that well. But I mean, 05 was an unbelievable experience. For Illinois, particularly with having the tournament in St. Louis. I wasn't at the games, so I was around for them, and it was like it really is the most exciting. I think it's arguably more fun than even like a Rose Bowl because a lot of times you can like take a trip on a spring break or like everyone goes like if you make the Rose Bowl, it's like the students are away and it's hard to get one together. But when you are like, if you look at the pictures from Connecticut campus, they're going crazy. Like they actually they had an event in Stores in the Stores Arena where they play their games, where they actually rushed onto the court watching the game on television, which is really kind of a wild thing.
Yeah.
So to make that's definitely my main takeaway on this is, man, making the Final Four is awesome, and I really want Illinois to get to one.
Yeah, and I mean, we can talk about that. Where do you think, as a program, where do you think Illinois is? How many years away would you say that John Gross is from getting his guys there, potentially?
Well, certainly they're moving in the right direction, and I know that sometimes it's exhausting for people to hear. But that was it was really going the wrong way for a while, and I said it was someone that liked Bruce Weber and liked him as a guy. I think it was clearly going in the wrong direction. I think he has it pointing in the right direction. I think that if there's any kind of nice thing about this tournament that we're learning with all these upsets is a lot of times you don't actually have to have that big, huge one recruit to do it. I think Kentucky is relying that a little bit. But, I mean, you look at Connecticut, this is not a team that has, like, Napier's good, but he's also, he's not, he wasn't like this blue chip McDonald's All-American, huge, obvious one-and-done guy. So you don't actually have to have those guys. To me, one of the things that's good about Illinois is that, like, they're recruiting like a guy like Kendrick Nunn ultimately becomes like one of your ideal kind of college players. And he's probably going to stay 4 years. He's going to keep getting better the entire time. That really is where Illinois' sweet spot is. You find those guys who just keep getting better and actually stay the full 4 years. And once you have that time where everyone comes together, I think that's going to be their strike zone. So I feel like Final Four is always hard to predict. There's great teams that don't make the Final Four and really bad ones that do. But certainly, I don't know if next year is the Final Four year, but I think maybe the year after might be. And particularly if you see Nunn until evolving as they typically they're going through and Black is on. So I feel like maybe in a couple of years, but you never know. I mean, like next year, I feel the Big Ten is down. It's going to be Wisconsin's going to be clearly the best team, and everyone else is going to be kind of fighting for scraps. You never know if a team gets hot shooting, they can always make a run. So they're going to be back in the tournament next year, which is a good start.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's interesting. You had mentioned how Illinois tries to get guys that stay around for 4 years. I think that would put them in sort of the same zone, like you call it a strike zone, sort of that sweet spot that Tom Izzo and Rick Pitino have gotten Michigan State and Louisville respectively into, where their guys typically don't bolt for the NBA. They typically have really good college players that stick around for 4 years.
Yeah, and then you can add a top recruit to that, and then you have something special. I think that's where you really want to be. You want to have a solid foundation. The thing about Kentucky is, yeah, they're in the national championship game, right? But I mean, they lost to South Carolina, a terrible team, like less than a month ago. And last year they lost in the first round of the NIT to Robert Morris. It is certainly a high stakes game when you're kind of doing that. Kentucky, you pull that off because Kentucky. For Illinois, I think what you do is you try to build a solid foundation, and then maybe you catch a break with a Cliff Alexander type of guy. It didn't work with him, but I like what Gross is trying to do with that. And I think a lot of times, if you build a solid foundation, all you need is one of those guys, and you can be a Final Four team.
Yeah, and I mean, much is made against the one and done style that Calipari embraces. Should we still be seeing him as sort of like this college basketball villain who's trying to ruin the purity of the sport? I mean, the narrative's been played out for a few years, and you've seen him win a national title, lose in the first round of the NIT, and then here he sort of had a team that we didn't think would go anywhere, and they struck, and they're in the championship game. I mean, do we still see him as sort of like a college basketball villain, like maybe a lot of people used to?
I feel like it's not so much that he's getting more likable as much as we're learning that, man, this sport is totally not pure at all. It's hard to argue in a lot of ways that he's doing any more damage to the game than anybody else. I mean, I don't know if you saw the story that there's in the New York Times this afternoon, where Shabazz Napier gave an interview saying, because he doesn't get paid, he's off it, like he's making so much money. I'm in a massive 100,000 seat stadium that's basically made with diamonds. Like this are just places like Dorset. And none of these players are getting paid to do this. And Napier talks about how, like, a lot of times he can't afford food in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so, It's hard for me, I find it really hard to argue that it's not so much that Calipari is sinister or breaking the rules or anything. I think he's actually if you talk to his players, I think he's being a lot more on what's best for the players than necessarily what's good for college basketball. And I think that's something that fans have to grapple a little bit with, because I think if we might not like what Calipari kind of taking advantage of the rules does for the game, but I think it's a much more honest than the way a lot of us actually see college basketball as opposed to the way it actually is.
I would agree with that. Have you thought about potentially what would be a good fix for, I guess, specifically for the one and done thing? I know Mark Emmert said that it's in need of change when he had his press conference. Do you have any ideas?
Well, I'm not sure Mark Emmert should give press conferences. He was really bad in that press conference, so that's one starter. But
yeah.
I also kind of feel like I think Adam Silver from the new NBA commissioner may fix this for them. I mean, people forget the one and done rule is an NBA rule. It's not an NCAA rule.
Right.
And Silver's actually talked about making it a two and done. And you wonder if that changes a little bit. But really, in a lot of ways, I mean, I honestly feel like college athletics are in a little bit of peril because I think that you have to, at a certain level, there's so much money involved in the games, particularly in football. So much money is coming from television. It's becoming harder and harder to morally justify not paying these players.
Yeah.
When the amount of money that they're coming in, I feel like it's not even like a political. It's so hard to argue that these guys don't deserve something. And I think you're seeing more and more of that. But we'll find out. You know, it's a hard fix, and it's going to make for some hard changes. But right now, all these kids are playing for free, and a bunch of middle-aged to elderly white guys in Kansas are getting all the and Missouri are getting all the money for it, and that seems to me pretty insane.
I mean, it's hard too because you got to think of the. I'm sorry, you got to think of the situation. Like some players, you know, it depends if they're real good one year and then the next year they might get injured. You could think of a player kind of like, you know, Jared Sullinger. He was real good that one year and then he got injured and then that kind of, you know, hindered his stock a little bit. So I mean, it's kind of hard for players to kind of see when should they go out and when should they declare for the draft or stay an extra year.
Yeah, I mean the injury thing is a massive problem. I mean, theoretically, if you remember last year when Kevin Ware broke his leg, Louisville didn't do this, but theoretically they could have just dropped him, gotten rid of his scholarship, and made him pay for his own. Made him pay for his own medical bill. They didn't do that, but the fact that they could, the fact there's no protection to make sure a school doesn't do that, to me just speaks. Listen, I don't know if unionization is the answer, just because it adds so many other potential problems to a situation that's already fraught. But even though I think it's a good idea, I don't know if it can actually work in a realistic thing. But something does have to be done because when you think about how little these guys are protected against things happening, and just how much money, like it's kind of like there's so much money in this building and being made by these guys playing basketball for free that it's kind of staggering when you really think about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of issues to work through. I would say that the unionization efforts, if nothing else, they're very good for being a loud statement to the NCAA that like this isn't fair.
It's a move in the right direction, right? It's a move in the right direction. I don't know if just like feasibly unionization really could work. So I'm not against it on principle. I think it's a good idea. It's hard to see how it can actually be implemented. Particularly, I mean, I think it's going to get voted down among Northwestern students. So among Northwestern athletes, I think it's the first problem right there. Mm-hmm. So, but certainly something's going to be done. It's harder. That's been one of my major takeaways from being in the Final Four this year. Just how, like, man, there's so much hypocrisy going on here. There's just the amount, like, there's all these rich donors paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars to watch this game that we're not paying the participants in. It starts to feel almost kind of obscene.
I agree with that point. We'll get you out of here in just a second. I do want to ask though. You know, you obviously didn't have Kentucky or Connecticut in your bracket. There are two people in your bracket group on ESPN that do, and one of them has Kentucky and the other has Connecticut, I believe. Are you still writing a column for the winner of that challenge?
I will. I haven't been contacted by either one of them yet, but I'm assuming they'll get to me pretty quick if they win. Yeah, so it's certainly. I'm doing a thing where for whoever wins my bracket, I will write a column on whatever topic they have. Now, it should be noted that I will write on whatever topic, but I won't necessarily write their viewpoint. Like if they're like, hey, Will, make an argument in favor of why Chief Wahoo should still become the Indians mascot. I'm not going to do that. If they want me to write about Chief Wahoo, I will. But I'm not going to take stances I don't believe. So we'll see. And it could be, like the column could be, Will, tell us why you're an idiot. And that's it. That column was going forever. But we'll see what they have in store for you. But I am glad that it's actually up in the air of who's going to win. I was a little afraid that we would not know going in. We already know going in, but it happens sometimes who's going to win. But I don't think that's the case this time. It'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with those guys picking Kentucky and Connecticut in the final, but they got
yeah.
they got it right.
I assume they're both alums, or just trying to screw around, but they may have accidentally won.
And then. Are you allowed? Can you give us your formal prediction on what do you think is going to happen tonight?
I think Kentucky's going to win. I feel like there is something. They have a way to just kind of overwhelm teams. I feel like Wisconsin played like the perfect game against Kentucky, and but Kentucky just kind of caught every break as they were doing all tournament. I feel like in a lot of ways, Kentucky when they can turn it on, they can go on these crazy runs and just kind of dominate. I can definitely see that happening. So I'll pick Kentucky in this.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Will, for joining us. We're going to go to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll be giving you our predictions for the national championship game. You're listening to Illini Drive on 107.1 WPGU.
This is Clark Kellogg of CBS Sports, and you are listening to the Illini Drive. Enjoy.
Do you like the way that your face looks when people take pictures of it? If so, we've got great news for you. The Illio is giving you one last chance to come in and get your senior pictures taken. We will be taking pictures for the Illio on the 4th floor of the Illini Media Building on Green Street from April 3rd, which is already passed, to April 10th. They opened it back up. They had said that it was the last chance had come and gone, but they opened it back up to give you another shot. Make an appointment today to get your picture taken at illioyearbook.com/senior-pictures. That's illioyearbook.com/senior-pictures, or by calling 217-337-8314. This is your year. Capture it forever with Illio.
You know, you looked me right in the eyes there when you asked if I like my face, so I don't know what you're trying to say there.
Well, do you like your face, Joey? I like your face.
Sometimes.
For those of you on UPTV, you'll be able to see Joey's face. We are rebroadcast on UPTV on Wednesdays at 9 p.m., which is kind of weird for this particular episode because we're pretty much talking all about the NCAA championship game. We'll preview that in the same way that we did it last time I hosted. By the way, my name's Elliot, so I'm hosting in place of Jamal Collier, who was fired for incompetence.
Jamal, who is that kid again?
No, I'm just kidding. He's actually sick today. At least that's what he's told us. My personal theory, though, is that he was so embarrassed about placing last in the Illini Drive Bracket Challenge that he just couldn't bear it and couldn't show up today. Of course, all of our brackets look horrific and terrible, but this year's winner was Darshan Patel again. Now, Darshan won last year, and Jamal took credit because Darshan's not an on-air personality. He's our executive producer.
So doesn't that mean I won then?
So according to the rules,
mention?
if Darshan is ineligible and just competing for his own fun, then Torrance is the winner of the on-air personalities who submitted brackets.
Do I give my speech?
Sure, you have 10 seconds. Go.
No, it's nothing, man. This is my first year doing this, so I was a little bit honored to to make a bracket and finally, I guess, win somewhat. But this
Okay,
was my
great
first year.
speech.
I wasn't bad.
Now, Torrance, tell me, how many Final Four teams did you have?
One.
And that did it. Sure enough. Of course, I think you won based on your performance in the earlier rounds because most of us had Florida in the Final Four. I don't think I did. I think I've actually whiffed on all four. Even the one most obvious one, Florida. You know, coming into this tournament, it was supposed to be Florida, Arizona, Louisville, and Michigan State, and
I had something like that. I just didn't have who I had. I didn't have Arizona. I had somebody else. I couldn't remember.
Creighton.
Was it? No,
I snuck
had
Creighton in mine. That was a mistake.
Yeah, Creighton didn't do so hot in the Sweet 16.
I rode the McDermott train and it didn't follow me.
Yeah, but so none of us are crazy enough to have predicted Connecticut and Kentucky in the national championship game, but here we are. That game begins, I believe, at
7:30, I think.
7:30, 8 o'clock, somewhere around then.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's going to start here sooner or later tonight, Monday night. And so for the convenience of our viewers on UPTV this Wednesday, let's preview this game as though it's already happened. Joey's not familiar with this. We did this last time I was hosting. It's a whole lot of fun. So if UConn has won, if UConn is the national championship on Wednesday when this is airing, how will they have done it? What does UConn need to do in order to ensure that they are the national champs?
UConn will have probably just like with their win over Florida, won by double digits. I don't think they're a team that will kind of keep it close. I feel like if they take a commanding lead early, they'll keep it. And defensively, for them, I think they can have the advantage there because Kentucky's 5 freshmen, and while they're dynamic, I feel like youth will plague Kentucky in this game. And I mean, it'd be the first time a team with starting 5 freshmen could win a national championship.
Take that, Chris Webber.
Yeah.
So, Torrance, in your mind, what will have had to have happened for UConn to win the national title?
I would say Shabazz Napier has to generate the offense again. Normally, he's pretty much scores majority of their points, but the last game he was getting so many people involved, and that kind of credits the success of the team. When you get guys like Davis involved, I know he's pretty much like the X factor on that team. When he has a big game like that, there's no stopping this team. And when Shabazz Napier could make shots and get other guys involved, get Boatwright involved, and get everybody just fired up, I think they could definitely make noise. But it all starts with the point guard, and he's been playing like pretty much one of the best point guards in the nation. It's definitely in this tournament. I mean, they held Wilbekin to 4 points. I'm sorry, the last game. So.
And if you're UConn, you have to have DeAndre Daniels step up. He's kind of been up and down throughout the whole tournament, and a player like that, if he can be on, that's a game changer for them.
Yeah, he had a huge game in the Final Four against Florida. He had 20 points and 10 boards. Yeah, I think the biggest key for UConn is Shabazz Napier has to be a leader, but other guys have to score.
Right.
So, I mean, that kind of touches on what Torrance was saying in terms of him getting the offense generated. He took 4th most shots for Connecticut against Florida. He was 4th most in shot attempts. Finished with 12 points. He could try and dominate the game, but he's not going to be able to win it alone.
Right.
A lot of people have been comparing Shabazz to Kemba Walker, who they were obviously able to get a championship in his senior year. They had a great run there. I don't think Shabazz has perfected the step-back J in the way that Kemba did. He had one of the most beautiful-looking shots ever taken when he beat Pittsburgh in the Big East tournament that year. But anyway, I digress. I don't think Shabazz is Kemba, but I do. I mean, a lot of people are saying that. They don't think Shabazz is Kemba. That's because he's not. But he can definitely power this team to a title if he is on his A game.
Yeah,
now,
I think. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think I wouldn't compare them a lot. I think Walker is definitely more of a physical player who could get it in the hole more, but I think Napier is definitely probably a better shooter. I mean, especially from the three-point line, he shoots real good from behind the arc. But I mean, I don't like to compare players normally. So, but in a sense, leadership-wise, I think it is similar.
Yeah, someone who is good making the three-pointer is Aaron Harrison, especially when it counts.
Oh man.
He buried Wisconsin, and I just want to take a moment to say, wow. Sucks for Wisconsin.
Yeah.
The program that Bo Ryan has built up for 15 years now, and he finally gets his first shot at the Final Four. And Will said that, they played pretty much a perfect game. I don't know if they played perfect. Kaminsky finished with 8 points only after that dominating performance against Arizona. But, man, they played so good. They were close to perfect. And, they had the lead. And Trayvon Jackson, if he had just made that first free throw,
yeah,
that the Harrison three wouldn't have been a deathly blow. But I mean, and they even had a shot at the end there. It was just so they were so close to being in a national championship game against UConn. They could have won that, and so it just shows you how close you come in March. And now it's another year, and they're favored as the best team heading into the Big Ten next year, which is, I guess, a small consolation prize, but. Whew, bummer for them.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't seeing this team, the Wisconsin team, as a Final Four national championship contender. I mean, they were up and down all year, and so.
Well, after they started up.
Yes, up and then down.
Then
yes.
They began.
Then they beat Illinois by 25.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's cool to see. I mean, even though it's kind of a rival, it is a Big Ten school, and so the fact that they were able to get that far, play that well. Against Kentucky, and like Will Leach said, this team's supposed to be a top-tier contender next year, so for them to get this far this year gives them even more confidence going into next year.
Yeah, but it's obviously tough to make that run. Twice in a
absolutely.
row.
Right.
Absolutely.
Devastating blow for the Big Ten too. Big Ten's still looking for a tournament team. They haven't had a team win since Michigan State in 2000. Wow,
That's a long time ago.
it's a long time for a good conference. I guess they're good. Who knows? They can't win when it counts. But anyway, back on subject. We're talking if Kentucky has won the national championship when we re-air on Wednesday. What will have allowed them to do so?
I would say size. Their team is 6. Everybody's 6'6" and up, so their whole team, their point guard is a foot taller than me, so their whole team is huge.
You can still take them in a 3-on-3 tournament, couldn't you?
I would just say really just size is going to play a key difference. I mean, I know we talked about their youth, but I mean, looking at guys like Aaron Harrison, that guy got ice cold veins. I mean, he's fearless out there. He has this mentality that no one can guard him out there, and he's not afraid to take those big shots. But I really think, they're going to clash on the boards. I think Julius Randle is going to be huge this game. But if they pretty much just pretty much bully ball UConn's players, then I think they can win the game definitely off the glass.
Joey?
If Kentucky's won this, I think it's a testament to their freshmen growing up pretty quickly. And I know I mentioned earlier, I don't think they maybe have a shot or a close shot at winning just because they're so young. It's going to have to be a tremendous game plan because you have 5 starting freshmen on one of the biggest stages in all of sports. Like Will Leach said, you got diamonds in the crowd there and everything focusing on you for 2 hours. I think they'll really need to grow up fast, and I think if they're in the game, it might come down to another Aaron Harrison shot at the end. I feel like that's just been the theme here. I mean, he's done it 3 times already. Why not 4?
That would be like the most legendary
yeah.
tournament run ever for an individual guy. I mean, it's not like he's blowing away the whole game, but for him to come through in the clutch like that, he's got that clutch gene, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think really Kentucky has some really good players, and they have a couple NBA prospects.
Yeah, their whole lineup.
Those guys. And I'm looking at you, Julius Randle. They will have asserted themselves and really taken over the game, not gotten caught up in the hype, and just gone to work and played ball. If Julius Randle just goes to work and plays ball, and like you said, bully ball against Connecticut, I don't know if Daniels and those guys can handle it. Because Kentucky's, weren't they? They were preseason number 1, weren't they?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. They're bookending the season as potentially as the top team, and a whole lot of drama going down in between.
And this is where that one and done idea comes in again too, where if you got a team like Kentucky getting this far now, I mean, imagine if any of those starters stayed another year. I mean,
oh my God,
they'd be dangerous.
Yeah, if they were under a 2 and done system, like why do you even stay? How do you repeat that?
It's also been a lot of comparisons too. I know we talked about the Napier and the Kemba Walker, but it's also they comparing this freshman team to the Kentucky team to the Fab Five team. So I just wonder if Kentucky was to win this game, how would that kind of play a role in the legacy of the Fab Five? Because some people think this team is better.
I mean, if they win a national championship, isn't that better
That's a
than
start.
the Fab Five? I mean, yeah, I guess the Fab Five will always be the first team to do that and to do that to the level which they did it. I think, you have Kentucky emulating them, perhaps doing better than them, but that's like, the Fab Five will always be the original 5 freshman dynamic team. But Kentucky's certainly putting on a very similar performance.
Right.
Also, I don't think it's fair that, these big programs, they'll recruit twins. That's that's not fair. You get like the Lopez brothers. You get a 2-for-1 big man deal, or the Morris twins with Kansas. You just have 2 dynamic small forward/power forwards, and then now with the Harrison twins, you've got 2 great shooting guards on the same lineup. It's like, well, geez, there's your secret. Just
right.
If only Kendrick Nunn had a twin, Illinois would be in much better shape. But yeah. What does this game mean for the programs and the coaches? Because it's interesting, the dynamic here. Like I said earlier, the Davids of this tournament are actually Goliaths. You have Connecticut and Kentucky, who in a given year would average like a 3 seed, and
Right.
including their down years. And here they are as a 7 and an 8. And Connecticut's favored in going into the title game. I mean, if you look at it by seeding, as a 7 seed, they're the higher seed. What does this program mean for the programs, or the win mean for the programs? What would it mean for them, and what would it mean for the coaches, Calipari and Kevin Ollie?
I think for UConn, it's very impressive, but I don't know if it's then again surprising, because Kevin Ollie was handpicked by Jim Calhoun and kind of making the lineage there of successful coaching candidates down the line, and it's impressive too because they were ineligible last year for the tournament, and so the fact that you're able to have that much motivation last year and then carry that into this year, I think even though UConn has had a storied past, I think they maybe gain a little more out of a national championship than Kentucky does, because if Kentucky does win, there's always going to be that asterisk because you have Calipari as the coach.
Yeah, just going off that, I mean, this win for Kentucky just going to mean more high schoolers going to blow his phone up, and he's just going to reel more one and dones in. It's hard to compete against that guy in recruiting because, I mean, he just produced winners. I mean, Derrick Rose and guys like Tyreek Evans. I mean, the list goes on and on. And also for UConn, I think it would be great for the coach because it's Kevin Ollie's second year, so it would just be good to, see him get a ring. And he was a former player as well, and just how quick he turned his program around after a historical coach like Jim Calhoun left. So I think that would be pretty good for him if he was to win as well. So I kind of think it's almost more about the coaches than more so the players.
Yeah, you mentioned how Ollie was the handpicked successor to Jim Calhoun, and I would just counter, but but Philip Bankston was the handpicked successor to Vince Lombardi. And
True.
who's Philip Bankston? Exactly.
You and your Packers.
Me and my Packers.
Oh, goodness.
They I think it's huge for Connecticut because it means Connecticut is still a power school, even though they're in the Big East as the rest of their conference, falls down around them. They're still able to be a power school, even though they're not necessarily in as powerful a conference. And, with Kentucky, you had looked at Calipari's model and you were starting to doubt it. I was starting to doubt it. Obviously, when you have guys like John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins, you can do magical things, but and Anthony Davis. But, when the freshmen don't hit in the way that you expect them to, like how they were ranked number 1 coming into this year, they lost 10 games and, lost to South Carolina. Like it was in question. But I think now you're saying, okay, even if they're not dominant during the whole year, he still gets enough talent to where, A, you're going to make it to March.
Right.
And play in the NCAA tournament. And B, when you get there, you can still do great things and win. Even if you go in as an 8 seed, you're still Kentucky. It's, you're Kentucky. You're going to be Kentucky no matter what seed you are. And that's why I think people aren't really surprised as much as they would be if this were like we had said, the George Mason or the Weber State or whoever you want to be, making it into the late rounds like this. So I guess we've blabbed enough about what it would mean and how it would be won. Who do we have winning the game?
Hashtag BBN. Hashtag Blick Blue Nation. That's what I think. That's what I think going on.
But they're both blue.
Oh yeah. I don't know, I'm just going with that, but I just think that size, man, that's going to be dangerous, and that's going to be a difference maker tonight.
For Kentucky.
Yeah. Pretty much.
I'm still going to go with the argument I made earlier that I just don't know if the youth can get through. I think I'm going to go with UConn. What I do have to say, though, is I think while there always could be an asterisk next to Calipari's name in terms of championships or the way he recruits, I think it's very impressive that he's been able to keep this team motivated throughout and playing as well as they are in March due to the fact that they all are going to be one and dones. And you kind of saw with Kansas in the first round of the tournament, whenever they lost, with Wiggins, that he didn't really have his best game, and you're questioning, well, is he really motivated in the program? Is he kind of just thinking, well, I got to get through this and go to the NBA? So I think in that respect, the fact that Calipari can get these guys that know they're going to be multi-millionaires in 3 or 4 months or so, to get them to still care about college athletics is interesting.
Yeah, and I've sort of come around. I posed the question: Is Calipari still a villain? And I have come to realize he's not really at fault. He's just using the system better than anyone else is.
Exactly.
Well, I don't know if he's actually using it better because, like I said, Michigan State and Louisville, they get guys who are like on the cusp that they know they can develop for 4 years, and they always have great senior leaders, typically in those two programs. But I in terms of who's going to win the game, I'm going to say UConn.
2-1. Well, 2-1.
I know that Kentucky could win it.
Yeah.
And if a team is going to blow the other team out, I'm thinking Kentucky's going to blow out UConn.
UConn used to coming back from deficits, though. The whole tournament, they've been losing, I think, double digit. Every game they lost by double digit and they came back.
And if Connecticut does lose, they're just the team that put together a hell of a run to ensure that Kentucky could win the championship. Yeah. Because, I mean, you've got guys like Florida or Michigan State. Those teams are experienced and they both have size that they'd be better off competing with Kentucky, I think, than Connecticut would. You have to be thrilled if you're Kentucky to be facing UConn.
Right.
But I think that Napier and Daniels and, Boatwright, those guys, I think that they really have just something about them this year that everyone's kind of sleeping on them every round of the way. And it's almost that Spurs element. Well, if no one's going to take the title, we'll take it. It really depends on Kentucky's effort. If they come out and they're on top of their stuff and not caught up in the hype, then I think they have a good shot at winning it. But I think UConn's going to be really focused and be able to make it a grinded-out game and come out on top.
Yeah, the fact that UConn beat Michigan State and Florida to get to this game speaks testaments just to how focused they can be and how in the zone they have gotten. The team Wichita State and the Michigans, Wisconsins of the world that Kentucky faced are very difficult teams, but they're not as deep and as experienced, as you said, as Florida or Michigan State with the storied programs there.
Well, Wichita State was, 35-0?
Yeah.
30-something, so...
But it's that experience level and the kind of legacy of the certain schools that were beaten by UConn that maybe gives them a little edge just previewing heading into the game.
I agree. And just watching those games, too, it almost seems like UConn exposed those teams. We seen when they played Michigan State, that zone was deadly. They had that high 2-3 zone and how many turnovers they made Michigan State commit. That was just crazy. And then, like I said, once again, just how they held Florida's, players just having almost terrible games. And I know Wilbekin hurt his knee a little bit, but, he still only had 4 points. And he was almost called to being like the best. Well, he's still one of the better point guards in the nation, but he just didn't have a good game when it mattered.
All right, guys, we got to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back though to pick our favorite moment of the NCAA tournament, and we'll give you our badass of the week. You're listening to WPGU 107.1.
Hey guys, this is Erin Andrews, and you're listening to WPGU 107.1.
Hello, everyone. You're listening to the Illini Drive. We were talking about the NCAA tournament. The championship game is set to tip off here in about an hour and 20 minutes or so. So it's really exciting. It's not the matchup we expected, but I'm looking forward to it. It's one where the teams have taken such obscure routes to the championship. It's almost like we don't really know what's going to happen. Right. But looking back on the tournament as a whole, I want to ask you guys, what has your favorite moment been from this year's March Madness?
I know there's probably a better choice here. I was kind of scrambling to try to sift through the greatness that is this tournament. But at least right now, I got to go with Aaron Harrison and his performance the last 3 games. That takes a lot of guts to really take control at the end of games. And like you said, he hasn't had the greatest performance throughout an entire game. The fact that his team has that much confidence in him and stealing the shining light from his twin brother, that's got to feel good too, making all those shots at the end of a game. So I'm going to have to go with that stretch of games for Aaron Harrison on Kentucky.
Torrance?
I was probably gonna say my bracket for being the champ, but I'm not gonna Jamal it or nothing. I'm more humble. #humble kid, the real humble kid, the real TS4. But I'll probably have to say that Mercer upset over Duke and just that dance at the end. That was the best dance I I mean, he did the nay. I didn't see that since John Wall did that in the dunk contest. But, I mean, it's just good to see, that dance, how much they have fun, and just bringing that program up.
Yeah, and then they got blown out by an 11 seed by 20
Right.
points. Gotta love it. No, I remember when I was, a wee lad, 15 years ago, watching Wisconsin get to the Final Four and get blown out by Mateen Cleaves in Michigan State. I have family from Wisconsin, so I grew up rooting for them. It was really cool just to see Bo Ryan and the Badgers finally make it to a Final Four. Bo's first appearance as a head coach, and the story about how he and his dad used to go to every Final Four, and his dad passed away within the past year. So it was really cool for them, and that's what makes it so tough to see them fall at the hands of one other random freshman's greatness, Aaron Harrison. That's the thing. It's like, yeah, he's had a great tournament, but it's been all at the expense of these Big Ten teams like Michigan and Wisconsin. He's making the whole conference look bad.
Right.
But yeah, no, that was a cool moment, and I'm hoping for more cool moments from this championship game. We can move on to Badass of the Week if you guys would like.
I'll kick it off.
You got one, Torrance?
Yeah, I got J.R. Smith, a.k.a. J.R. Swish.
A.k.a. J.R. Untie Your Shoelaces.
Yeah, he's hard-headed, but, I mean, that kid is like a microwave once he shoots shots, and he held a franchise record for the New York Knicks. Franchise record, given just so much historical background with the Knicks and just Madison Square Garden in general, and he had a record of 10 threes against the Miami Heat the last game, and then they lost. But also, what's ironic about this is that he also held the NBA record for the most shots attempted that same game with 22 threes. That was the most in NBA history for shooting the most and also making the most in franchise history.
So the guy that he beat made more threes than he did.
Pretty much.
What you're saying. The ironic thing about that is that you're wearing a Heat hat as you talk about JR's performance against Miami. For me, the Badass of the Week, there's a lot to choose from. We could go in the direction of the tournament. It's hard to give it to anyone but Aaron Harrison, just because, there's nothing more badass than making the last shot in a game. And he did it twice against two really good schools that have way more business in the championship game than this year's Kentucky team does. But he doesn't care. And it was like the same shot twice in a row, and then he also had the huge shot for them against Louisville too. So yeah, he's just, I know it was more than a week ago that he made the shot against Michigan, but I'm doing this for Wednesday's viewers after Harrison hits the game winner in the championship.
There you go.
So
I'm going to have to split mine, and splitting is a theme on my second person. The first I'd go with Ole Miss's Austin Anderson, who hit the walk-off homer on the intentional walk by Auburn.
Yeah, I saw
that
that
they just
video.
screwed up and gave him a meatball, and he jacked it out of the park. So that was a pretty cool moment for them. And then the splitting part would be for Christian Ehrhoff on the Sabres, who got a puck that sliced his ear.
Ooh.
The top part of his ear, in half. He got some lovely stitches to fix that. I can't remember it. I don't think he went back in the game. Wasn't that crazy of a...
So now is he badass or is the puck badass?
I think he's badass. He's probably going to come back in a day knowing hockey. Baseball, you get a blister, you're out for 4 weeks, but these hockey guys come back. When, what was it, Peverly on the Stars that had the heart attack on the bench, he woke up from the shock and goes, "Can I go back in the game?" That's the mentality those guys have. So that'll be my badass.
I'll still give it to the puck though.
Yeah. So we've got I had a lot of good moments from this tournament, a lot of stuff to talk about from it. One thing that I will say is I think that the NCAA does need to implement some rule changes. The one highest up on my priority list would be the simplest change of all. Last year they changed the foul calls so that it was harder for defensive players to draw charges and easier, they took away the hand checking rule. I don't like that, but what I would like to see in college basketball is a reduced shot clock. I've done some math. If you divide the number of seconds in an NBA game by the shot clock, that would get you the minimum number of possessions in a game. If you do the math in the NBA, the number is 120. Without doing the math, what do you think it should be for college basketball?
Oh, we got to do math now?
Yeah, I can't do math.
No, without doing the math. How many minimum possessions in a game do you think there should be for college basketball? It's 68.5. Compared to the NBA's 120.
Oh, almost doubled.
Yeah, it's almost double. So you want to talk about March Madness and all these crazy upsets? Maybe they're just not playing enough basketball. And so often we'll see guys, bring the ball up and spend 10 minutes standing or 10 seconds at the top of the key while people run around the baseline and try and get open. I think they need to speed the game up. The women's shot clock is only 30 seconds, and I don't understand why it's been decided that, the women's game needs to be faster and the men need an extra 5 seconds to, I don't know.
I mean, high school was worse. I mean, I remember back when Derrick Rose played for Simeon in the national championship game, he held the ball for like 2 minutes. And
some high schools don't have a shot clock. That would be the worst. But, I really think if you want to increase scoring, increase the number of possessions, get these guys more reps, and maybe, if you have an extra 12 possessions in a game, which is what it would be if you turn the shot clock to 30 seconds, which isn't a huge change, you'd bring that 68.5 up to 80 for the minimum possessions in a game, and that's divided amongst two teams. So
yeah, I agree with that, and the fact is, I think in basketball versus in a lot of other sports, because the feeder to the NBA is college, you want to make sure that the games are pretty much mirrored on both sides, and so I think a quicker game would allow the college players to get used to, okay, when I cross the timeline here, I don't have 10 seconds just to play around and wait for something to happen. You got to get into your offense and into your system as quickly as you can.
And I think it'd be more exciting, and I also do think that would have an effect in terms of these upset bids. You've got teams. All it takes is one run, really, in college basketball. And in the NBA, you need to have your run, and then you need to counter the other team's run because eventually it's coming. So yeah, that's my rant of the day. I think if we decrease the shot clock, Jay Williams, former number 2 overall draft pick by the Chicago Bulls, better known for being an ESPN analyst, says that they should change it to 24 across high school, college, and pro. I would support that. I don't think that's going to happen, but I would support it.
Because it's a completely different game, and if you're looking at high school, there's no shot clock. I mean, it takes the whole momentum out from the game, and then you get to the next level where there's over 24, and then it gets to 24. It's a strange, I guess, decrease but increase as you go along.
Yeah, it's just hard to adjust that way.
Yeah,
and you wonder why guys don't pan out.
Right,
they don't play enough basketball for teams to know.
Right, and you too look at Illinois. This year as when many possessions, Rayvonte Rice would bring the ball up, and it'd kind of just be stagnant and sitting there. And I feel like if you had a quicker shot clock, it forced them to get a little bit more into a system quicker than kind of just standing and waiting and maybe relying more on isolation than you would a set play.
You'd get more game going on. You'd get quicker possessions, more points.
Yeah.
I don't see a drawback at all. All right, but that is all for our show today. Thank you for tuning into the Illini Drive. Thanks, Will Leach, for joining us from Jerry World, as he likes to call it. Man, excited for this championship game. We'll see who wins, or we already know if you're watching us on UPTV. Thank you very much. I'm your host for the day, Elliot Sill. Jamal should be back next week. This is the Illini Drive. You're listening to WPGU 107.1.